Startup Life Support featuring Bridgett Hart, creator of the Hart Habits. And tonight we are talking about 5 strategies to navigate tough relationships with your sanity intact. And I tell you, we were already planning to talk about this topic in a workshop with our live Startup Life Support group here in the Phoenix area. And we knew that this was still a perfect topic to take online because, boy, day to day life has changed for a lot of us. I mean, we've got folks that went from being in their own homes by themselves or working from an office peacefully to now being at home all day with your family, your children, your significant other, your pets, your in-loves. Sometimes we call them in-laws, in-loves, whatever we want to call them. And it is certainly an opportunity to test our patience. And so we've got Bridgett here tonight to give us an introduction to the Hart Habits, which is a framework that we can apply to a number of situations, including what we're living right now. But not only that, but our relationships with colleagues and coworkers and contractors and the difficult people in our lives, family members, all of that. So this is really a well-rounded topic for discussion. And that's really what Startup Life Support is all about. It isn't just about your business, because as business owners, as entrepreneurs, we know that it is very challenging to be able to take our lives and our businesses and to break them into these very neat little segments. They intertwine, and when things are going well with our business, but things aren't going so well in our personal lives, it's going to spill over into our business and vice versa. So Startup Life Support is really about equipping us to be the best that we are in all areas of our lives and being successful in every area. Because if you're killing it, the bottom line is great, your bank account is wonderful, but the rest of your life is in the crapper. Are we really successful? And my answer to that is no. And so one of the things that we have focused on doing over the past 3.5 years with Startup Life Support is making sure that we create that space, whether it's through education, but certainly through connection, for us to be able to discuss those things, to not just talk about what we're doing and what our goals are related to our business, but also what are some of those challenges that we might be facing personally, and to be able to support each other in working through them, because a lot of us are isolated before now. And so, and even now, even though you have a lot of people around you, perhaps in your home, when it comes to your work, you may still feel very isolated when it comes to figuring things out. And so Startup Life Support is really about being able to create that safe community where you can talk about what's really going on. You don't have to worry about trying to impress people with how perfectly Instagrammed and curated your life is, but we can take that mask off and talk about the real deal. So for those of you who don't know me, let me just introduce myself very quickly before we turn things over to our presenter for the evening. My name is Aisha Cogborn, and I am the founder of Epiphany Institute. And 3.5 years ago, I started Startup Life Support really out of that need that we've been talking about. In 11 years that I've been in business, I've seen both sides of it. I've been in that place where I felt very disconnected and very lonely and not feeling like I had anyone who understood what I was dealing with as I worked to build the business of my dreams. And I've also had situations where I felt very supported, like right now. And as I found that community for myself, I found out that most of the people around me did not have that. So Startup Life Support was born 3.5 years ago to be able to fill that need, so that we have the staying power to be able to build that business of our dreams and not sacrifice everything at the altar of success. And so tonight is really monumental, because in 3.5 years of Startup Life Support, we have been a face-to-face community. And we've been asked by people across the country to make it online so that other people could benefit, because they've heard such wonderful success stories that have come out of the local community. And, I pushed back and said, oh, I like it being face to face. Everything else is online. But things changed. And certainly the world that we're living in right now has changed things. And so this was the perfect time for us to make a change as well. And with the climate of uncertainty that we all are living in right now, it was very important to be able to provide an avenue like Startup Life Support to business owners at all stages. And this isn't just, we talk about startup, in the title, but this isn't just for people who are planning to build big businesses and sell them off. But this is just, that startup for us refers to still being at the beginning of our journey. And really that just means we haven't arrived yet. The business of your dreams has not been realized. You're still in the stages of building that. And so that's really who Startup Life Support is for. We have people like myself who have been in business for more than a decade. And we have people in our community also who have that idea that they're just now beginning to build. So wherever you are on that spectrum, sometimes you're there to get and sometimes you're there to give. And that's the beauty of Startup Life Support. So again, we're moving online. It's a national program. So this is a very historic event today, a date that I will mark on my calendar and remember for years to come. And I just thank you all for being here with us to celebrate this historic event. And I tell you, I can't find anybody worth kicking us off like our presenter tonight, Bridgett Hart. And Bridgett is not only an expert in her own right, and that's the reason why she's here tonight, but Bridgett is also a member of Startup Life Support. And so she understands the importance of this community and the value that is brought through the work that we do collectively. And it is a collective. I may be the founder, but Startup Life Support is only what it is because of the people who are a part of that community. So I know you've had an opportunity to read Bridgett's bio, but she really has covered the gamut of experiences professionally. I'm sure she'll tell you more about that, but she's worked in multiple sectors of industry through entrepreneurship. And then even her personal life has been very varied, I guess I should say. Getting married later in life, having a young child now, being single for years. And so when we talk about how do we build beneficial relationships, she has had an opportunity to wear a lot of hats, to sit in a lot of seats, and to have a lot of experiences to have to work through in the midst of that. So we look forward to learning about the framework, the Hart Habits that she's been working on for more than a decade. And now we get to benefit from her findings, her data, and the application. I mentioned I had an opportunity to be a part of the pilot program for the Hart Habits. And I tell you, in one of my personal relationships, it absolutely changed my life. So I'm very grateful to you, Bridgett, for the work that you're doing. And with that, I'm going to stop talking and hand the stage, the floor over to Bridgett. Welcome.
Oh, thank you so much. I am here just getting this set up for you all. Let me move and make sure this is not showing to you. And oh, Aisha, I am just so grateful to you for allowing me to be a part of this community. Like you mentioned, it's been very valuable. It was very valuable for you to have that, and it's been invaluable for me to have that as well over the past, I think, 2.5 years that I've spent with you. So I'm really grateful, and community really does tie this all together. So hi everybody, thank you for being here and welcome to the pandemic. We're gonna be okay. We're gonna be okay. I don't know how yet, but we are gonna be okay. And I am here with you because I was like, look, what better time than the present? When do we have more opportunity to face some of these relationships really head on than right now when we're suddenly all in very close contact, in close quarters with one another? And this is what I've been preparing for this whole time. I was like, why is it taking so long for me to put this out? And apparently I had to get ready for right this very minute to be in the very first ever international startup life support session. So I just want everybody to start with thinking for a minute. You know, who's extra unlovable in your life right now? We all have people. Um, and right now, with being in our houses, right, sometimes those people might be like your child, your wife, your parent, your neighbor, who knows? It could be people that you really, really love, but maybe you're just feeling a little bit of tension, friction, difficulty in trying to communicate. And so I can understand that. And this all started for me because I really realized that it was me being unlovable to myself in that time, right? So I'm going to go right to giving you the 5 strategies right up front. Here they are, write them down. You can take this away and you can run now if you want to, and you'll have the very important key points. But there's 5 really important questions to ask that are going to help you figure out. These are the first 5 questions, but these are questions are going to help you figure out what your answer is, because the important thing that I'm sharing with you is that this is a framework for you to use and apply. It's not all the answers. I don't have all the answers for how you need to talk to your husband, wife, mother, sister, boss, son, daughter, whoever. But what I do have is the right questions for you to ask. And I have a framework that will help you apply them consistently. And you'll find that you consistently have the right answer for you. So those questions you can read there. I'm not going to read them out loud to you because you can all read and we'll come back around to them. So let me introduce myself to you guys now that I'm here. Aisha, thank you so much for introducing me and edifying me in such a way. I mean, I can't even tell you, Aisha, how impactful it was to me when you shared your, I don't know, testimonial with me or what have you from the beta group. And that was just awesome to me. And that's why I'm here sharing it with you guys, because I do believe it'll help. So my name is Bridgett Hart. And one of my old bosses is here, which is kind of awesome because I'm going to talk a little bit about my time when we were working together. But I am a consultant, I'm a recruiter, I'm a teacher of adults and children. I have 3 different companies. You're welcome to check those out in your time, in your spare time if you want. I have been a certified life coach since 2013, although I don't do a lot of one-on-one coaching. I am a master's level adult educator. I'm about 6 credits away from finishing that degree, but we won't talk about that right now. That's a whole story in itself, and one day you'll hear it. I spent about 15 years doing out of school programs. So that would be before and after school, day camps, summer camps, winter camps, that kind of stuff. I worked with North Idaho Youth for Christ, the Boys and Girls Club on the Air Force Base. So for the Department of Defense, I worked for the YMCA, Spokane Public Schools, and I currently actually work in the Chandler School District as well. So I'm actually back in that world now after 15 years out of it. And during that 15 years, I actually worked among other things, as an executive director of a group home agency. So basically, it's just a lot of systems and a lot of human services, right? It was a lot of time spent seeing people living, needs being met or not met well, oversight, systems, operations, a lot of people heavy type of operations. So a lot of relationships in those environments, a lot of relationships, right? And it was key to get good at figuring out how to deal with relationships or work relationships well as quickly as possible in most of those scenarios. So I kind of became an expert in those things. I'm also a mom now. I'm a wife. I have a beautiful daughter. I'm a sister. I have a beautiful family. I'm a friend. And I've really been able to develop a wonderful community around me, like Aisha, like La Vista, Veronica, like so many people that are watching tonight included. So, but this all started about 13-ish years ago. I'm going to say ish because I don't need to age myself. Some of you knew me then, some of you didn't. This was in Spokane, Washington. So if that tells you anything about the time frame. Um, I was what people looked at as a very successful single Christian woman. I had an executive role, you know, all these kind of important things. I had a home I owned and I was making a good salary. I was overseeing a lot of people. But in my personal life, it was just really messed up. You know, I, like you see here, I was cheated on. I had been in abusive relationships. I was super stressed out, super depressed, really, really anxious, you know, things were bad. And the truth is I was having suicidal thoughts. So this was the state of mind I was in. And I feel like right now in the midst of this pandemic, again, I feel this energy that so many people feel, all these things like what is going on? What's going to happen? I can't get away from where I'm at. I don't know the avenue. I don't know the way to move through this situation I'm in. And so I could relate to that. I had been a Christian previous to that. And so I turned to a Bible passage at the time because that was what I had. I literally had never at that point in my life done any studying outside of my Christian background. That's changed now. 13 years later, I've done a lot more in-depth study and a lot of different things. And this is where it started. So it's called the love chapter. Love is patient. Love is kind. It doesn't envy. It doesn't boast. Blah, 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 right? We've all heard this kind of piece of scripture. But it's, you know, a lot of words. It's a lot to remember. And, you know, there's like 50 different versions of it because, um, you know, I'm going to turn my video off because we don't need me. Maybe I can't turn my video off. That's all right. Either way, this is the 10 heart habits. This is what came out of 13 years of deconstructing that scripture, trying to figure out like, what is love? How do we do this every day, like in real life with other humans, right? And ultimately with ourselves. Thanks, Aisha. I appreciate you doing that for me. And so I blew that scripture up. I did a bunch of studying of a lot of different schools of thought, you know, business, science, philosophy, psychology, all kind of different things. And I came up with these 10 words that kind of encompass everything. All right. And I like to say there's a game called Othello. The slogan for it is a moment to learn, a lifetime to master. And that's kind of what this is with these 10 heart habits is 10 words that when put to use in the right way can give you the answers to literally every single relationship difficulty that you might have. All right. So we're just going to run through an example here. I'm actually going to pull the comments up because as we go on, I know some of you were probably thinking of maybe who you're having difficulty with right now. You might have something in mind, you know, maybe like I said, you're with your kids all this week and you're like, look, I love my kids. They're awesome, but I'm feeling a little bit, let's see if I can see the chat here. Kind of way. But, you know, I'm feeling a little bit stressed out with them. I'm not wanting to, you know, I don't know what to do with them or whatever. So anything like that, I would love for you guys to throw anything in the chat or start thinking about a relationship or a story. If you would like me to kind of take your situation and use that as a scenario for our training, then that will work. Otherwise, I do have a little assessment at thehearthabits.com/assessment if you want to go there. Basically, it's about 10 questions and you're just going to grade yourself on a little scale of where you think you already are in terms of the statement that you will see at that site. So feel free to do that. And we'll actually be able to see a live there you go. What situation or relationship tests your ability to be loving? Okay, let me see if I can get back. There we go. Um, so here's the framework. All right, we call it a framework because it has some shape, some structure to it. There's meaning behind the structure. So you might notice that this is a spiral. It is, you know, inspired by the nautilus shell there that you'll see, which is a representation of what we call sacred geometry, right? Or the, God's math. So there is something called the Fibonacci sequence, which is a number that when it's, added to itself, it basically creates this spiral shape. And this spiral shape, there's some interesting things about this spiral shape. One is that this shape can grow infinitely without ever changing its shape or its structure, right? So it has an infinite capacity to grow within its structure. So the other thing you'll notice about this framework is those 10 words you just saw are in here. They're numbered, and you'll notice that self is right there in the middle, in the center, at the core of everything. So I'm not going to go too in depth to it, but you can go to the hearthabits.com/PDF if you are here with us tonight, and you can just download this framework. This is really the important thing. I literally just want to get this tool right here in your hands and let you put it to work in your life. Okay. So go to thehearthabits.com/PDF. You don't even have to put in an email address or anything. If you go there, you can just click the download button and it'll come down right on your device or your computer or whatever you put it on. All right. Please go do that. Take it. Enjoy it. But this is what it looks like. You see, we have a little framework over here, and then we have a set of 10 mantras. All right. Now, a mantra is basically a statement of an ideal state of being. Okay. So understand that underneath all of this is zero judgment. I myself have been working on this for 13-ish years, and I am very far from perfect at relationships. I am 100% a human. I mess up all the time, all the time. But I have a framework. So when I know I'm messing up, I have something I can go to and say, okay, where am I messing up, and what do I need to do to repair that situation or make it better? All right. So please download that at thehearthabits.com/PDF. So now let's get back to you. The 5 questions that I talked about were, first off, what do you want as an outcome and why? So when you're thinking about your scenario, your relationship, your situation, think about what do you want as an outcome. Since nobody has put an example in the chat yet, which I encourage you to do, I will just use the example of the kids are in the house all week, right? We've got all the kids in the house, all the adults in the house, all the people in the house, and it's getting uptight, right? And what are we going to do? What do you want as an outcome? Now I have to guess here again, if you're not going to comment, but in that situation, you might think, okay, what do I want as an outcome? I want, some amount of peace in my house, or some amount of order in my house, or maybe I want the house to be clean while we're here, or I want the kids to study, or I just want to be able to relax myself. I want to sleep. There's really literally an infinite number of correct answers to that question, but you see where we're going to go. The next question is, what are the associated facts, right? Can the kids really leave? Is there other options? Are there sicknesses? What's the point? What are you doing for universal precautions, etc.? So I'm actually not going to dive into each question here because I'm going to give you a tool. All right. And these go with the tool. So the 5 heart habits that these questions come from are self, truth, trust, thoughts, and talk. All right. And I just want to kind of go through and describe how one might apply one of these 5 principles to their scenario. Now, I have a little adventure for us later, a little choose our own adventure. Oh, there we go, Veronica. Thank you. Employees not being resourceful. They're waiting for me to tell them what to do instead of looking for the answers on their own. Yes, I understood you meant waiting for you to tell them. Yes. Perfect. That's a great example. I would love to use that one. So let me get into the mode here and we'll use that. So the 5 first heart habits we're talking about: self, truth, trust, thoughts, talk. All right. So the first question in that scenario, Veronica, let's go into this principle of self, and I'm going to talk about it a little bit. All right. So The mantra that goes with this particular habit is, I am an exquisite and unique being. Everything flows through me, and I know, love, and respect the vessel I live in. All right. So when we talk about self being the number one habit, I get a lot of resistance on that idea from a lot of people, and really from internally from myself, because I grew up as a Christian, and you're always told, oh, you shouldn't be selfish. Don't be selfish. Don't be self-centered. It's not about you. It should be about everyone else, right? But I think that a lot of times in that set of thinking, we kind of miss the point that we actually exist in this world, in this universe. We exist in this body. And there is a reason that we exist in this body, that we exist in the experience that we live through. There's a reason we're born to the people we're born to, in the place we're born, in the environment. Now, I'm not saying it's all a good reason per se. I'm not God to, decree that. But only you were born in your vessel, right? So only you can really understand it and appreciate what it is and what it brings to the universe in terms of your passions, your strengths, your weaknesses, your connection to the divine, and what boundaries you need to set in order to respect the vessel that you live in. So when we're talking about this scenario where employees are not being resourceful, and you, Veronica, are left with the responsibility to make sure that the work gets done, right? So there's a few things here. This is never going to be easy, by the way. And when we talk about someone being really strong in this habit, when they're really weak in it, often what they will notice or feel is jealousy or insecurity. They'll feel jealous of other people, or they'll feel insecure about themselves. And when they're pretty strong in it, they're going to feel relatively confident and probably quite self-aware, and they're going to understand. So what do you want as an outcome? And Veronica, we have to talk about you, right? What you want as an outcome, I'm kind of going to be guessing here. Feel free to add comments in the chat, which I'm reading here. But what I'm guessing you want here is you have certain things that need to be produced, either for yourself, if you're the ultimate boss, or for someone above you, right? And you're feeling all the pressure of people needing the guidance from you. And I imagine that is probably stressful to you. It's probably stressful to you from both sides, right? So you've got people under you that are asking a lot of questions and not just figuring things out. And you've got people maybe above you that are saying, why isn't XYZ handled already? Or how come you haven't figured it out? So perhaps what you actually want is less stress, or perhaps what you want is to accomplish project XYZ. So could you tell me more? Is there a specific project you're trying to accomplish, or is you need less stress and more time to do what you need to do? Okay. So great. Now, when you look at your, let's talk about where things might apply here. So when we talk about what do you want as, what do you want as an outcome? Being self-centered versus centered in self. You want less stress, but the truth is that is being centered in self, knowing that you need less stress and you need more time to be able to accomplish what you need to do, right? So that is being centered and understanding what you can do. Now, you also know you are perfectly imperfect. You are a human. You can only accomplish what you can accomplish. And your USPs speak to your kind of unique selling points or your strengths, right? What are the things about you that are the most strong? I'm having to guess right now, but I would guess that one of your strengths is being able to pull the team together and move them forward strategically. I think you have some military background possibly, so you probably know how to execute a strategy when you have one. Is that true? Yes, you lead with execution, right? So are you running into any trouble with getting the authorization from above to execute what you need to execute in order to get the team on board? Okay, great. So you know that's one of your strengths. Now, boundaries, right? So the stress that you have, is it related to um, people have too much access to you right now? Is it related to they don't have clear enough guidelines for what they need to accomplish? Or do they need more empowerment, for lack of a better word, in order to accomplish what they need to accomplish? So, what boundaries need to be in place in order to reduce your stress right now? Would be the next question I would have you ask yourself. You can just think about that for yourself. It might take some time, right? But get clarity on responsibility, right? So perhaps this would be a time where you want to think about, like, okay, do I need to write some stuff up? Do I need to create some bullet points on how we want to handle some stuff? Um, do you want to create a quick org chart that says this is how we're readjusting some of the responsibility right now? Perhaps you need to delegate a little bit to this person or that person, but very clearly, right? We'll go into that in more detail later, but ultimately, the key is listen to your inner voice, connect with the spirit, right? I, again, don't like to preach at anybody, but I do believe that the wisest voice in these times is the quietest voice within ourselves, right? And the way to access this is to get quiet. So, in my talking to people right now, I'm definitely talking about doing deep breaths in, deep breaths out, in through the nose, out through the mouth. I'm talking about doing meditation. I'm talking about if you do prayer, that you pray but listen, like, so you're not saying things to God, but rather just quietly listening to what you hear the Spirit speaking, and listen to that voice above all other voices, right? So figure out, listen to what the boundaries that you need to put in place. What is the Spirit telling you about what needs to be done in terms of, how to reduce your stress, right? It might even be saying you need to take a day off. It might be saying you need to call in sick for a day, and everybody will just have to figure it out. Sometimes we have to let go. Sometimes it's our control that wants to be, on top of all these things, or, um, you know, working things out. So that's kind of question number one. Now, here's where we get to choose our adventure. We do have an example that we can use now. So maybe I'll let Veronica tell us which aspect we go into next, or maybe I'll make a suggestion. However, if you did go and do the assessment, and I've had several other people do the assessment up till now, between now and previous to tonight, um, this basically, I'm trying to move my, let's see, how to move my little chat so I could see everything. So this little assessment kind of just tells where everybody felt they are in each of the 10 heart habits officially, but these are in the first 5, which are who we're talking about. And I figured if we didn't have an example, we could just kind of choose our own adventure and figure out if we wanted to dive a little deeper. We already dove into self a little bit, and we can now dive into truth, trust, thoughts, or talk. Um, in this scenario, I would probably want to dive into truth personally. I'd want to dive into truth a little bit because I think that's important. But Veronica, do you have any um, specific requests, or if anybody else in the chat wants to add okay, trust. Okay, great. That's a good one too. Okay, so like I showed you before, so thanks for choosing our little adventure here, Veronica, and you guys get to go with us. Like I mentioned before, in the framework, they build upon one another. Self is number one for a reason. It's number one because it is literally the foundation of everything else, right? If if you don't get in touch with what you want, why you want it, what your boundaries need to be, what your inner voice or your spirit is saying to you, if you don't know what your strengths are and maybe what things are not what you should be focusing on, then everything else is going to be more difficult, right? So that's true for truth as well. It is the second heart habit, and generally trust does rely on the truth aspect. But let's jump into trust anyways. And the trust mantra is, I choose to trust as a default because I listen to my inner voice and I know how to see and carry truth. Understand again, this is an ideal state of being. The point of the mantra is it's an ideal state of being. It's something that the more we say out loud, the more that we can create that truth in our lives. Okay. I really literally had to do this for myself. I had to say, okay, I'm going to choose trust. In all situations, I am going to choose trust, period. And it's amazing what a difference this one habit made in literally every aspect of my life. So I find that people, when they are kind of not so strong in this area, they may have a tendency to be seen as very guarded. They may feel that they are guarded themselves. And when they actually are really strong in this habit, they're seen as very trustworthy. I need to take a drink of iced tea. You hear me? I don't have coronavirus, but I do have a sore throat. Thank you for waiting. So they're seen as trustworthy. And this is actually what I have seen happen for me as I've put this habit into practice in my life, is that people see me as someone that they can trust with their secrets. So let's dive into that with our little scenario. So what can you trust about them or it, about this situation or about that? Now, habit number 2 is truth, right? And there are some truths that, Veronica, I'm sure you know, and I'm guessing in this time that you've had your employees are needing to work from home, and maybe some of the difficulty lies in them figuring out how to do that. Is that the case? Just so I kind of stay on track here. Okay, yes. And is the truth that it's pretty stressful for everyone right now? Yes, right. Okay, so we'll just stick with that's the truth. Right now, let's talk about what we can trust about them. What can we trust about the situation? Now, this principle comes from the idea that love always trusts. So, like I said before, this is choosing trust as a default, right? And when in doubt, like, okay, I'm going to just trust the truth to be true. I have to clarify it that way sometimes because it's a little hard to say always trust um, without understanding what truth is. But love always trusts. Okay. Now, the second point is where I clarify that trust and verify, right? It's okay to set up ways that you're verifying. So, for example, let's say that employees are not being resourceful. Let's say that what you need them to do is perhaps get online, join an online session of some sort, or log into something, or create a report somewhere online or something. I don't know exactly what they have to do. However, a way to maybe verify that would be some sort of a check system. Maybe you do your own meeting that forces them to, sign in all from the platform that you're using or something. If you want to give me any examples of some of the things that you can trust about the situation in terms of let's talk about, are they going to be technologically inept at times? Can you trust that they will be technologically inept? Have they shown you that they will be that? Yes. Okay, so you can trust that they will, right? Okay, so what you need to know then is that's going to be true. They are going to be technologically inept, and they have probably not been forced to do these things in the past. And so the truth is that's going to be really the case. So you might need to institute something that is going to pretend like every one of them is, your grandmother, and you're trying to show her how to use a flip phone, right? Pretending that everybody is at that level will allow you to create a tool or a system or a way of getting everybody on board at the easiest level possible, right? Even though they're very advanced, very smart, especially in times of stress, we need things to be as simple as possible. We need them to be dumbed down, for lack of a better word. And I don't love that word, honestly, because I'm not dumb, right? I don't need things to be dumb, but we already have a lot of stresses going on in our heads, in our minds, in our families. with groceries, with the toilet paper, like we're out of toilet paper. I can't worry about trying to get online with you and worrying about how the business runs for you right now, right? Like I need to wipe my butt, right? Like, so systems that close the loop. What's the weakest chain, or the weakest link in the chain, or the space where there's the greatest breakdown or the greatest bottleneck, and how can you pinpoint that area, make it as easy as possible, solve the problem for as many people as possible. If you need to, bring in other assistants, bring in other contractors. If you need to hire a professional who's an expert at possibly pulling your team online. By the way, Aisha probably has a ton of those experts. I have already a ton of people in my network that literally are experts at pulling everybody online. So you have those people in your network, and it might just come by the key might be rearranging how you're thinking about them, understanding that the truth is the truth. They are stressed out. You are not a high priority to them. Their job, while they need to get their money, is not the highest priority to them. Their health is, their family is. How can you work with that instead of against that? Embrace the stress that they have, embrace them on a professional level, and try to make it as simple as possible for them, right? And also put checklists in place, put verifications in place, so that while you are trusting them, you're also giving them the tools they need to have the systems to do it and close the loop. Does that make sense? So do you want to go to another one, or we can, I don't even know what time it is right now, honestly. Let me see what time it is. 7:13. I can go on to another choose our adventure, or we can wrap up. Would you like to talk about another one? You might have noticed, even though that in talking about that, I kind of hinted a little bit at thoughts. I hinted a little bit at truth, and without anybody else chatting in with any requests, I will just talk quickly about truth, because there is some really important and pretty crucial stuff here. So when I talk about truth with the Heart Habits, everybody thinks they know what the truth is, right? I'm right, you're wrong, they're wrong, we're right, us and them, they and me, we and they, red and blue, right? But the truth is that the truth is very, very open, and it's open to interpretation. So the mantra is, I face objective and subjective truths head on, and I carry them simultaneously, even when they conflict. All right. Again, this is a little controversial to some people, right? Because they're like, that doesn't feel right to me, because I don't feel like I can carry conflicting truths at the same time. But I'm going to share with you right now how you really can, and it'll change your life. So I find that people who are having a hard time with this, they tend to be seen and possibly even themselves feel judgmental, and to feel like they often know what's wrong with other people. And I find that when people are really using this habit well, they tend to feel and be seen as very open-minded. So what are the associated facts? Let's talk about, um, okay, you didn't do the assessment. That's cool. Oh, this was my challenge with a family member. Oh, with the facts, the truth, Aisha. And then Monica says, I didn't do the assessment. Okay, Aisha, I see that. I didn't do the assessment, but the thoughts is a good one for me. Was staying with a friend while I still work on healing. Yes. Okay. So if we have time, we'll definitely pop over to thoughts really quick. I'd love to do that. So let's talk about truth really quick. What are the associated facts with the situation you're dealing with, right? So just to kind of follow along with Veronica's situation quickly first, the associated facts. We know we're in a pandemic. Everybody just switched from, one type of working to another type of working. They have all these personal stresses they're doing. They have their kids at home, possibly. They may have immunocompromised people in their families, etc. Right? So these are some of the associated facts with why they are not as resourceful as you might want them to be right now. So love celebrates truth is the underlying point of this habit, right? Love celebrates the truth. And that doesn't mean that love knows what the truth is. It just means it celebrates. And when you think about celebrating something, right, what kind of images come to your head? The type of images that come to my head when I think about celebrating the truth is like, I've got this thing, spotlights on it, I'm putting things up in lights, I'm putting it in, headlines, I'm shouting it to the world, I'm holding it up for the world to see, right? This is how a celebration really looks, right? So when we talk about what the truth is, we've got a couple different kinds of truth. We've got objective truth. The objective truth in this scenario is, yeah, there's a pandemic, there's a worldwide pandemic, right? The subjective truth is your employees, probably not any of them do they have coronavirus. Most likely, none of them have coronavirus. Some of them might be sick. These are subjective because you don't really know. They haven't been tested yet, right? But you think that's probably true, and it most likely is. And therefore, it seems to you like they should be capable of being resourceful and doing their job, right? And that seems subjectively to be a pretty honest assessment of the situation, right? You don't have a lot of kindergartners working for you. You have grown-ups who are professionals. They do this, so they should be able to be resourceful in this time subjectively. That's true for you. But there's a duality of truth, right? So this is where you can allow for their truth, is that yes, they are competent, yes, they are professional, yes, they do the work all the time, and also objectively true, yes, there is a pandemic going on, yes, they have a lot of fear, yes, they have a lot of extra issues to deal with right now. So both of those truths are true. um, and in this situation, what you want to do is allow for their truth. Okay, so in allowing for their truth, let your truth kind of go to the side for a minute. Yes, they should be able to do it all, but their truth is also true right now. And because you have an ultimate goal you want to accomplish, which is less stress, right, from the self habit, you want to accomplish less stress. So you need to embrace what their truth is. Their truth is they are stressed out, they're in a different situation. Now, on to what we just talked about a second ago, trust. How can you adjust the system you're doing with them? How can you verify? How can you, make it work for them? If we're talking about a family member, Aisha, or if we're talking about staying with a friend, oh, the thoughts, we won't talk about that. So if we're talking about a family member, what are the associated facts with this situation? I have a family member. I don't know what your situation was, Aisha, but I have a family member that is, let's say, I'll talk about a former, somebody that's not with me anymore, actually. I had a family member who was addicted to methamphetamines for 20 years. Addicted to methamphetamines for 20 years, right? And, see, she had children, and her children lived with me, and that kind of stuff, right? So when you're talking about how I dealt with her, how I lived with her, the associated fact was she was addicted to meth. And we had to create boundaries around our family in order to keep us safe from the negative behaviors that her addiction would cause her to do. However, um, we also still loved her, right? And the truth about that situation is that we still loved her subjectively. Subjectively, we still loved her, right? Objectively, she was addicted to methamphetamines. Both of those things were true. um, and so we had to learn that if we are going to give her money, there should never be a thought of like, oh, I'm going to get repaid for this, right? There should only be a thought that she will likely use that money for her drugs. And if I'm okay with that, which there are scenarios where I am okay with that, then fine, here's the money. And if I am not okay with that, then no, I have a personal boundary, right? We go back to self, and I'm allowed to have a boundary of, no, I will not give you money because I don't feel okay with the fact, the objective truth, that you will use it most likely on some level to buy methamphetamines because you are currently addicted to methamphetamine, right? So um, there was a time when she then had a grandchild, and she had to be told that she could not see her grandchild unless she was able to kick her methamphetamine habit. And praise God, she actually was able, after 20 years, she was able to kick her methamphetamine addiction. And she got clean. And after she had been clean for a year, she got to spend time with her grandchildren. And that was awesome. and beautiful and a miracle and wonderful. And unfortunately, a few years later, she got breast cancer and passed. But the point is that it was okay to be honest about the objective truth and also honor the subjective truths as well and hold both of them at the same time. So Monica would like to talk about thoughts really quick. Oh, whoops, I should have not hit that way. So let's jump over to the thoughts section. Hi, Hugo. Love you too. Go to dinner. Enjoy. And I'm not here to take up everybody's time. So please comment if you have a question or if you want me to stop talking, if you'd like me to address something. So if not, I'll keep going. Crystal, send love to the family as well. I'm sorry, Hugo, send love to Crystal and the family as well. Okay, I'm talking. Um, so thoughts, let's talk about thoughts. And Monica, you said you wanted to talk about thoughts in relation to staying with a friend while you still work on healing. Okay, so, oh, I went to truth instead of thoughts. That's okay. Let me fix that. Oh, I must have. There, let me just fix it a different way real quick. All right, so thoughts. So the mantra behind the habit of thoughts is I allow and direct my thoughts. So there's a reason for every word in each of these mantras. I really meditated on these for really hours and hours when I wanted to think about like what is the idea behind this mantra, behind this habit, right? So I allow and direct my thoughts to focus on those things that I want to attract more of. And I find that people who are struggling with this habit, they often feel victimized. Like, I can't believe they did this to me, that person, those people, a lot of other people doing things to them. Now, that does not in any way relate to people actually being victims of, crimes, abuse, molestation, etc. Like, people have been victimized, right? Most of them I know are actually survivors as opposed to victims, but that's not what I'm talking about here. I'm really just talking about in their pattern of thoughts, okay? And I find that people who are strong in this area are often seen and they feel personally courageous, all right? Even in times of crazy stress like a pandemic, all right? So I allow and direct my thoughts to focus on those things that I want to attract more of. So what are your thoughts about them or it, about this scenario or about this person that you are dealing with, okay? Or uh, how it is. So this comes from the idea of love keeps no record of wrongs. And in kind of talking about this, I thought that first meant like, oh, that means love shouldn't keep grudges, right? But as I dug deeper into it and as I kind of like expanded my mind around the idea and tried to really build this framework for us, I figured out that it really has to do with your thoughts. What are the thoughts you're having? Um, some of you have heard about the amygdala. It's part of the brain that is called like the lizard brain or your caveman brain. It's the part of your brain that lets you know that you're scared to jump off a cliff, if you're not properly secured and comfortable with that or whatever. And also make sure you eat. It gives you your fight or flight instinct, etc. Right? It's really helpful. It teaches us what to fear and what not to fear. But the truth is that each of our amygdalas are different from one another, right? We don't all fear the exact same things. We don't all desire the exact same things. Um, okay, great. That's good. Okay, good. Okay, thanks, Monica, for that little extra comment there in the chat. I'm going to dig into that very specifically then here for you. So, our amygdalas are not all the same, right? Like one person is afraid of dogs, another person loves dogs. One person's afraid of snakes, another person has 20 snakes in their house, right? We all have different things. And that's okay, but it tells you that there is no right or wrong in some ways. And then we talk about conscious thinking. Um, the idea behind this is that our amygdala is kind of like, let me just pull up my little notes here because I don't want to uh, go off track at all. And, there's details of this stuff. Like I said, a moment to learn, a lifetime to master. Okay, so I like to talk about, yeah, the RAS. Okay, so the reticular activation system. This is where I want to talk about it for a minute. So that's what I wanted to make sure of. The reticular activation system, some people talk about this. The idea behind it is it's the system that kind of speaks to the amygdala. Okay, the amygdala actually speaks to the RAS. It speaks to the reticular activation system. That system is what absorbs the outside world, right? So let's say there's like 4 billion pieces of information outside of our body at any given moment in time, right? We can only actually absorb like 4,000 of those pieces of information. So our brain has to choose how to filter out 4 billion and only allow in 4,000 because that's all we can process. And so that system that does that is called the reticular activation system. It's different for each of us, again, because our amygdalas are different, right? We have different fears. And so we have different things that our brain tells us to filter in or filter out. One example I like to use: when I was single for a long time here in Phoenix, I used to say all the time, like, oh, there's no good men in Phoenix, or all the men here are short, right? I'm like 5'8". I'm not that tall, but I felt like all the men were short. And I used to say that all the time, right? And I would look around, I'd go out to, some of you guys remember, what was it called? Oh, I'm gonna remember later, but that's okay. Thomas something, I forget. Anyway, all the guys are short, right? So I would look around, I would just see a lot of short guys all the time. Well, once I actually started changing my mind, your son is giving me the stink eye. All men are not short. I was lying. I was lying. My brain was lying to me. I had had experience that I had met some short men was the truth, but then I was telling myself that. And so my brain was telling my reticular activation system, look, all the men here are short, so only seek out and find the short men, right? So in any given audience or crowd, that's who I would see. You could probably relate if you've ever had a favorite car, right? Or suddenly had a favorite car. And before, like you're like, oh, I love a Mini Cooper. I drive a Mini Cooper, right? So before I drove a Mini Cooper, I'd see them every once in a while here and there, right? But once I have one, now I see them all over the place, right? So perhaps you've experienced that. Well, that is your amygdala telling your reticular activation system what to allow in, okay? Now, when we talk about conscious thinking, we're talking about paying attention to the thoughts we're having, okay? So with Monica, with you, the idea here is to pay attention to what the thoughts are you're having. Your husband and his charger, yes. Now, there's chargers everywhere. There's a whole club. They're buddies with each other. They got to pull up next to each other and be like, hey, guys, here's my charger. I'm cool. You're cool. We're cool. I see you, Lavista. Um, but Monica, let's talk about your, because we had a charger too, and ours was a Hemi, so I can feel you, except it was my husband's thing, not mine. So your friend is very encouraging, and she wants you to heal the way you need, but you feel like a burden. So Monica, if you're willing to be open, tell us a little bit about what the actual thought is you have when you say you feel like you're a burden. Do you feel like you're a burden because she's cooking a meal for you? Do you feel like you're a burden because you're in her space when she maybe would like alone time? Do you feel like you're encroaching on her romantic relationships? Tell me a little bit more about what the actual thought is behind why you feel like a burden, if you can. And I know it's hard to think through this, right? But this is why this is an exercise and a practice. This is something that takes time to apply, because sometimes we're not even conscious of why we feel the way we do. And that's our amygdala at work, our reticular activation system at work. But we can put our thoughts to work for us. So anytime you chat back to me, Monica, I would love to know if there's any specifics about what you feel is burdensome to her about you being there in her house as you're healing. If I had to guess, I would guess some of the things I just said, like maybe it's you don't have a lot of money to give her, perhaps, right? Maybe it's she's doing a lot of the cooking and cleaning and you're doing healing. So you need to sit, and you're used to being a caretaker, taking care of your daughter, taking care of your family. You're used to cooking and cleaning and probably working all the time. And right now you're needing to sit back and heal a little bit. I'm sure also you need to do a little social distancing. So you probably are in the space a little bit, right? So these are some of the conscious thoughts. So when we talk about how to utilize this habit to change the situation for you, um, I like to give people this exercise. If any of you joined me on my little Facebook Live yesterday, I kind of shared it. It's called the top 5 thoughts exercise. So we want to exit and create new pathways, right? You're feeling like a burden. She's saying the truth is, right? If we go look at, if we start the self situation is you are healing. You are in a situation where things are extra stressful for you, they're extra tough for you, and you need to heal right now. And your body needs the time and space and energy to apply towards the healing efforts from a physiological sense. And I know that because I know Monica, so I kind of know a little bit. But that's something that is true, and it's about yourself, right? So that's the truth about yourself. Um, when we talk about trust, right? You have moved in with this person, so you do trust her. You trusted her to be someone you could move in with when you did for a few minutes, right? You trusted that she was going to take care of you and treat you well. Okay, so you're following with the heart habits. Everything's in order right now. So now we start talking about the thoughts you're actually having. So those top 5 thoughts, here we go. Okay, okay, great. So you're just not contributing as much as you want to. All right. So I would ask you one question. Are you contributing realistically, honestly, truly? Are you contributing as much as you can right now? And I'm going to just bet and guess that the answer is yes, because I know what kind of human you are. You, I'm sure, are probably trying to do too much. And she's probably constantly telling you, like, no, go sit down and rest for a little while. Go write, go sit down and write and do what you're supposed to do. Right. Okay. Right. She tells you it's more than money that you give her, right? So this is the truth of the situation. That's how she truthfully feels. Okay. So when we talk about exiting and creating new pathways, if you were to list out your top 5 thoughts that you're having right now, right? Maybe number 1 is I'm a burden to her, to my family, to other people. Maybe a second thought is I'm not a good support to my daughter right now. Maybe a third thought is I don't know how I'm going to bring in money in the near and long future. And I'm stressed out about how I'm going to pay bills or get back on my feet or whatever, right? I'll just talk about the top 3 thoughts right now. And these might not be yours, but I'm just kind of guessing. Um, so, how to create conscious thinking is to actually create a counter thought for that, the opposite of that stressful and actually untruth, right? So let's take the first thought. If the first thought is, I am a burden, the counter thought is to that, no, she is actually feeling blessed to bless me right now. Like, how would you feel if you had a friend who's going through what you're going through and you happen to be in a scenario or a situation where you were able to meet this person's needs? I sound like her, right? Well, she loves you. So, how would you feel if you were in her position and able to support a friend like you in this same way? You would feel great. You would feel awesome. It would bless you to do that. Now, if they're ungrateful, if they are slobs, if they're rude, if they're unkind, then we need to go back to the habit and we need to talk about boundaries and whether you're honoring yourself, right? But I already know that that's probably not the case here. And so the counterbalance to you are a burden is no, you are a blessing, right? You are a blessing. You are a blessing to her. You are a blessing to your daughter. You are a blessing to your family. You are a blessing to your friends, period. That's the counterbalance, right? So the way that this exercise works is as you create the counterbalance to each of those top 5 thoughts that are creating stress and anxiety in your life, you now write them down, okay? Because we would talk in the next one about talk, and maybe we have time, maybe we don't. But write them down, because for a minute you might have to literally have, a visual of what that counterbalance statement really is. I am a burden. No, I am a blessing. Write I am a blessing on a sticky note, on your mirror, on your phone, on your front screen, wherever it needs to be, so that every time your head tells you, I am, okay, cool, just good till 7:50. Every time your brain tells you I'm a burden, you can remind yourself, no, I'm a blessing. No, I'm a blessing. No, I'm a blessing. Okay. So this is how we use conscious thinking to change our lives, change our relationships. If we go back to Veronica and think about this thought situation, um, what you're thinking about your workers and them being resourceful right now, right? What if you were to say they are being as resourceful as they can? Then would it change how you're thinking about what your next step is in terms of how to lead them as a group, right? How to execute the mission and the vision? Does it change that, right? All right, so let's just say, right, awesome, so glad. Well, then let's just jump into number 5, talk, right? Because here we are, and we've kind of touched all of them. So when we talk about talk, this goes hand in hand, in hand with self, goes in hand with the truth. What's the truth? Goes in hand with trust, thoughts, and now here we are. So I use my words out loud to exponentially strengthen and uplift myself and others. When we talk about someone being kind of not so strong in this habit, we might see them as a gossip. They might be seen as a gossip. They got a lot to say. They got a lot of words, right? But we don't trust them, and we don't trust them with our secrets. And, you know, maybe they're fun and entertaining, but the truth is being around them is probably damaging to you, right? When we see people who are moving in this habit with a lot of confidence and strength, we see them as wise. We think of them as wise, right? The words they say, they're careful with them. And what comes out of their mouth does, it uplifts and strengthens the people around them. So if we take one of our scenarios here, what are you saying about this situation or this scenario, right? If we're talking about the children, right, what are you saying about having your kids in the house with you? If you're saying it's annoying, it's hard, it's difficult, it's stressful, they're going crazy, they're working my nerves, that's going to make it worse. That's going to make it harder on you, on them. It's negative. You're going to exasperate that, right? If you choose to say something, now I'm not saying you're wrong for that, because there's no judgment involved in this, right? This is literally a personal journey. We're all in our own place on every one of these habits on any given day. But if you change that and say, you know what, my children are creative, they are energetic, they need to get stuff out, again, it might make you think differently about how to resolve the issue, how to create the solution that you want out of the situation, right? So think about, like, what do I want? Do I need quiet? Okay, maybe you need to go to the park for 5 minutes by yourself and leave them in the house. That's social distancing. It's okay if that's what you need to do. So what are you saying about them or it? I'm going to take a drink of my iced tea real quick if y'all don't mind. So this comes from the principle of love does not rejoice in unrighteousness. And again, at first, I kind of thought that meant like gossip, like, oh, okay, love doesn't gossip. But as I dug deeper into it, dug deeper into it, dug deeper, and expanded it, I should say, I realized it was really about the words that we say, what comes out of our mouth, because the things that come out of our mouth have an effect, they have an impact, they land somewhere, right? They land on ourselves, they land on our amygdala, or they land on the humans around us, or they land on the universe, or they land on whoever they land on, right? And talk is a tool, just like I talked about conscious thought a moment ago, and how we could take that thought of I'm a burden and transform it into I'm a blessing. And even if we don't believe that, talk is the tool that can make that thought that we want to become reality. Talk is the tool that turns it into reality. Okay. And this is how it does. this stuff is the fun part because I feel like it is very spiritual on many levels, but it's also very practical, logical, scientific. It really is sensible, honestly. So you remember we talked about that reticular activation system and the amygdala, right? And how the amygdala teaches the reticular activation system what to allow in to our brain, what to experience, right? What to see, what to notice, what to feel, what to think, these kind of things, right? But by talking, we actually can create something for our reticular activation system to have to take in, right? Because we can't say something and not hear the words that come out of our own mouth, right? I mean, unless you're deaf, that's possible. So let me make a exception for that situation. But I believe even then we could get into talking about this deeper. Um, but speaking those things out loud creates a scenario where your brain has to pull that information in and be like, wait, what? What? I have to process this? What does this mean? What is this? How is it true that I'm saying I'm a bird, I'm a blessing, right? This comes up a lot of times when we talk about money and how to talk about money or how to use the heart habits to change a financial situation, right? Because instead of saying like, oh, I'm so broke, right? Which is powerful words coming out and being received by your reticular activation system. Um, Instead, we can say, I am rich. Here's how I'm rich. Or we can even say, here's how I imagine it's going to be when I'm rich. When I'm rich, I'm going to I don't know, go on many trips around the world, or I'm going to pay off these bills, or I'm going to, whatever. But saying those things out loud allows our brain to absorb them. And the more we say them out loud, the more our brain receives them. And the more our brain starts to look for instances in the world that support that, those words or that thinking that our brain has now begun to embrace. So I like to call um, talk kind of like the thermostat control for our lives, right? So if our amygdala is kind of like our thermostat, right? And we have different temperatures. If we want to change the temperature of our life, talk is our thermostat control. It's the button that says, let's turn this up or let's turn this down. It's by saying things out loud. All right, so this is the heart habits, and there's actually 10 heart habits. The last 5 are even, these are actually the first 5 are definitely the deepest and really are foundational to everything else. But the other 5 are practical, logical, and really help build on that. You kind of saw what they were in a minute ago. And if you download the PDF, you'll see all of them. Please get the framework, get the tool, use it however you want. I'd appreciate you not trying to use it as your own, obviously, but other than that, use it, share it. I would love to hear back if and how it works for you. And of course, all 10 heart habits are on there. But if you would like to dig into it more and you'd like to do so in a situation that is, led, quote unquote, by me, I guess I should say facilitated by me, because I don't consider, okay, I'm an expert in the heart habits, right? But I'm not an expert at implementing them. I don't know everything about how to implement them in my own personal life all the time, right? I'm a human. It's the human experience for me as well. And it's a journey for me, just like it is for everybody. So I'm just basically inviting all of you to join me on the journey. I've put together a lot of great materials, tons of resources. Like, I don't consider myself to be the expert, but what I have done is pulled in so many resources so that everybody could find resources that would hopefully resonate for them and would give them something that they could really sink their teeth into personally, whether you're a Christian, whether you're an atheist, whether you're a scientist, no matter kind of what background you come from. I wanted to put resources together that could speak to any number of people. And so starting in July, I'll be doing this Year of Love situation. You can check it out, hearthabits.com, Year of Love 2020, or go to the hearthabits.com/PDF, and you can download the framework for free. Not even an email address is required. So I don't want anything from you except to give you this tool to hopefully see it work for you in your life. And I would love to hear about it if it does. And if anybody has any questions or would like me to follow up on anything, I am looking at the chat right now, and I am happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, I will, pass it over to Aisha.
Thank you, Bridget. That was so valuable. And again, that was just a taste of it. We got a high level overview of the first 5 of the Hart Habits. There are 5 more. And so if this was resonating with you, or you see how this could apply to situations in your life that you want to see change in, then I encourage you to learn more about the Year of Love 2020 to be able to sign up for that cohort. And what I love so much about this is that, and even in Bridget, in the way she talked about, she said, hey, I'm an expert on the Hart Habits, but I'm not always an expert on applying this to every situation every day. And so what I love so much about the Hart Habits is that it acknowledges that we are on a continuous journey. And some days we feel like we're winning. Some days we fly off the handle, or we do something that is less than productive in our relationships, professionally or personally. But to be able to have a framework that is easy to digest, to depend on, and that, for those of us who are Christians, is rooted in scripture. If you're not, it doesn't matter, because it still works. So, but something you can hold on to and say, this is the easy way to be able to think through and process these situations, mantras that I can hold on to and apply every day, that will get me recentered around what does my ideal reactions, behavior look like. And we know that we can't necessarily change the people around us, but when we change the way we look at things, the things we look at change. And when we change ourselves in certain situations, then often the people around us react as well. And even if they don't, again, because we've changed the way we see it, that duality of truth that she talked about, then we're able to respond very differently. And people don't stress you out as much anymore. And I'll tell you, as I mentioned a bit in the chat, I had a family member who I love dearly, but boy, I mean, we were just butting heads constantly. And I didn't like the person that I was being in certain situations. I wanted to be better. I wanted to do better. I wanted to have better thoughts towards this person, because I truly love this person. But my thoughts and my actions were less than loving. And so being able to, within these 10 habits, I was able to take one habit, true, bam, that was it. Me being able to make a mindset shift around that one thing completely changed my relationship with this family member. And now the things that used to rile me up and get my feathers all ruffled, or would cause me to make judgments towards this person, it just doesn't even happen anymore. They'll say something, I don't even react. It doesn't even bother me. And I can say that really getting that truth through this easy framework into my system, into my thoughts, and then into my behaviors really made the difference for me. So I strongly recommend, at the least, make sure you go ahead and you download the framework. The mantras are there for all 10 habits. Make sure that you're connected to Bridget on Facebook. I believe you got a Facebook page too for the Hart Habits. So connecting up to there, because there's a lot of resources that she's been compiling even just during the beta period. So thank you, Bridget, so much. This was absolutely wonderful. And again, that was just a taste. So I'm excited for those of you who are going to get an opportunity to be able to experience it even more in depth. So this was a little bit of a taste of what Startup Life Support is all about. It's about being able to equip us in all areas of our lives, and when it comes to our business, when it comes to our personal lives, our relationships, our physical health, our emotional health. And, we've been doing this face to face for 3.5 years now. So folks that are in the Phoenix area have had an opportunity to benefit from it. I know we've got some folks on the line that were members of Startup Life Support here and moved to other parts of the country. And so now you're able to connect back in. So I'm so excited that now Startup Life Support is going national through our online community. And if you've ever experienced the in-person startup life support format, our online format is going to be very much like that. We'll still have opportunities to connect, to get to know what each other are doing. So we just have a sense of who's in this community with us. It won't feel distant or sterile. We're still going to get to know each other. We're still going to have our mastermind tables, but in this case, it's going to be breakout groups. So we'll still be able to have that time of sharing. And so we didn't do that tonight because this was a special event. But in our Startup Life Support sessions, we're going to be able to still have that mastermind table experience where we're able to talk through what's going on with us, what opportunities or challenges we're experiencing, what we need, what we want to be held accountable to, all of that. So we still get that experience, plus that opportunity to be able to connect in the Facebook group to hold each other accountable to those things. And, you know, when I first started Startup Life Support 3.5 years ago, I knew the experience I wanted people to have, but I really didn't know how to articulate the benefits. And after 3.5 years, you know, what I've really seen is three main benefits, and that is clarity. Because sometimes we don't know how to get there. We have this picture in our heads, we see bits and pieces of it, but we don't know how to order those steps, or we don't know where should we be focusing our time and our energy. And we have so many different people in our ear all the time saying, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to invest in that. And it can get completely confusing and overwhelming. So we want to help you to figure out what you want and how to get there faster and easier. Confidence in business, that is so critical, because if we don't believe in our value and what we're bringing to the table, others won't either. And so that is one of the things that we are continually looking to instill in each other, so that as we go out into the world, we ask for what we want. We value our products and our services. We're not selling ourselves short, and we are able to deliver because we believe in ourselves first. And one of the things that I know for sure is that confidence is often synonymous with competence. Confidence is often synonymous with competence. And so if you're around here acting like you don't know quite if you know what you're talking about, and you're unsure, maybe you're playing, you know, fake humble, and well, I don't know if I'm the one for you, or if I can do, and maybe that is your truth in this moment. But we have to show up confident so other people believe in us too. Because if not, we may have the knowledge, we may have the goods, but they'll go and find somebody else who they can believe in more. And most important, with Startup Life Support, and it's so critical right now, where we are living in a season of so much